y'all, it's Brooke and I just finished week 4 of my ultra marathon training. As you can see, I am not in Texas. I have a beautiful view here in Silverton, Colorado. I'm here crewing for our good friend Tara Dower as she attempts the Hard Rock 100 this weekend. This week for training went a little downhill. If you watched my last video, you know I did a 10-mile long run on the last day of that week, and I was testing out a bunch of new nutrition, and I was also testing out running with a vest. That night after I ran, I was in a lot of pain. This is a self-diagnosis, but I think it's like my SI joint, which is where your pelvis connects to your spine, essentially. It's that joint right in there. I was having sharp pain there. I got really scared because I was planning to do this Colorado trip where I was gonna go, play around in the mountains, and I really did not want to be injured for this trip. This week I took it very, very easy, and I prioritized time on feet. I think that time on feet is probably the most important part of ultra training anyways, because that's what makes it hard, is just, going and going and going and moving for that long. I wasn't gonna let, this inkling of an injury totally stop me from training, but I was gonna do my best to be productive, but also not hurt myself any worse. So that's kind of how I went into this week. This is the first injury that I've ever experienced while running. I kind of think that it's from running with the vest. 10 miles is a distance that I've done a lot of times and have never been hurt, and the trail that I was doing it on was really flat and really easy. The only thing that I changed was the vest. If you kind of look at the video of me running with it, it does like bounce a lot, so I don't know if, maybe it just didn't fit me as perfectly as I thought that it did. I don't know if it's supposed to bounce like that. I'll have to try more runs with the vest and kind of see if it flares up that joint again. Anyways, let's get into what I did do this week, even though I was a little injured. Day 1, I did around a 4-mile hike. I was on my feet for an hour and a half. I was doing some birding, taking it really chill. I was still experiencing some pain at this point. I do know that a little movement for injuries like that is good, so I didn't want to just sit down all day, so I did this little walk. It was very flat, very easy, time on feet outside. Day 2, I was still experiencing some pain, so I actually looked up exercises to relieve SI joint pain, and I was making sure I'm doing these exercises like twice a day, once in the morning, once at night, sometimes 3 times a day. It's a lot of stretching and then like glute bridges, some other things that kind of strengthen your hips and your muscles that are around that SI joint, because inconsistent muscle strength around those joints is what causes that SI joint pain. They did work. I did, like, after those exercises, my pain went away. It would come back, throughout the week, but it was kind of like some relief after doing those exercises, which was nice. I did another hike. This was around 5 miles. Again, it was nothing crazy. It was about 2 hours, like just trying to stay on my feet, not put this whole week to waste, essentially. Day 3, you guessed it, I did another hike. This one was for like an hour and 20 minutes, trying to keep that time on feet. Day 4, I actually tried to go on a run. I was feeling a little better from my exercises, so I was like, I'm just gonna do a little test run. I ran 4.3 miles at a 12:17 pace, very slow, very easy. And I didn't have pain afterwards, but I did have a lot of tightness like in my lower back after that. I made sure to do my exercises after that run. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not ready to hop back into running yet. I'm still having a little bit of irritation there, but it did feel good to get out on the trail. Day 5 is when I started my drive from Fort Worth to Colorado. I actually stopped in New Mexico on the way there, and this is where the training gets really interesting, okay? That day, I barely did anything. I think I hiked like a total of 2 miles at a wildlife refuge, just like halfway there to get out of the car, because I did drive a total of 10 hours that day. It's really hard to get time on feet or do any training when you're in the car for 10 hours, but I tried to do what I could. I wanted to make sure I rested because the next morning I actually hiked the tallest mountain in New Mexico. It's called Wheeler Peak. It's over 13,000 feet. It was almost a 9-mile hike with 3,000 feet of elevation. It was no joke, y'all. It was so hard. I was really, really, really struggling at the end to get up that mountain. This is not easy, y'all. I'm having to stop like every 0.05 miles to catch my breath at least. But this is my view. And if you hear all those little peeps, those are pikas. They're right down there. I can see them chasing each other. I couldn't breathe. I'm coming from Texas, Fort Worth, at, I think it's 500 feet of elevation, and hiking to over 13,000 foot for this mountain. And that was like within one day of leaving Texas. So as you can imagine, I did struggle with the altitude, but I expected to. I knew that it was going to be hard, but I really wanted to do that peak, so I did it anyways. I also did it alone, which was kind of scary. The hike, I think if you were acclimated, the hike was pretty easy. There wasn't like any hand over hand climbing or scrambling or anything like that. It was pretty much switchbacks all the way to the top. But what made it hard was not being able to breathe and my muscles just fatiguing really quickly up that mountain because my body can't circulate the oxygen. Anyways, that was a really hard hike. I knew that it was going to be not a wasted training day. I know that it wasn't running, but my heart rate was at like the same amount that it would have been if I was running. It was at like max when I was climbing the mountain just because of the low oxygen available. My heart rate would just shoot up immediately. And the elevation gain, like the climbing that I did, that is just not a waste of training at all. I think that that is probably better than a lot of my running training that I've been doing that's really flat and easy. And then on day 7, I did another mountain in Colorado in the San Juans. It's called Engineer Mountain. And this has a really interesting story because 2 years ago when we were traveling around in Winnie, we came through this part of Colorado. We were driving this really famous highway called the $1 Million Highway that goes from Durango all the way to Ouray, Colorado, and you are driving these windy mountain roads and it is absolutely breathtakingly stunning the whole way. If you've been following our channel for a while, you know Winnie. She was an old gal, wasn't the best on the mountain roads. Going up she was really slow, going down we had to take lots of breaks because her brakes would like smoke and stuff and overheat. So she wasn't the best on the mountain roads, but she made it, okay? I think we were here like October-ish, and this area of Colorado was getting like their first snow, their first ice of the season. We didn't trust Winnie. Although I loved Winnie so much, we did not trust her on snowy, icy mountain roads. So we kind of skedaddled pretty fast. We kind of just drove the highway and left. We didn't do a lot of hiking within the San Juans, but I saw this mountain while we were driving. It's very prominent on the highway, and I was like, I want to climb that so bad. So I do some research, I look on the map, and I find out it's called Engineer Mountain. I was like, I know I can't climb that right now because we don't have time, but I will, mark my words, I will come back and climb that mountain someday. And that is exactly what I did on day 7 is I climbed Engineer Mountain. And it was so hard. So it was only 6.3 miles, which isn't that bad, but it was 2,400 feet of elevation gain, and it was an out and back. And you just go straight up and straight down, which means it was 2,400 feet of elevation gain in like 3 and some change miles, which is a lot of elevation gain. It's a lot of climbing. So there were kind of like switchback to the base, I guess, of the mountain. And then when you got to the base of the mountain, it was like there weren't switchbacks at all. It was like East Coast hiking. You're hiking straight up. That was like for the last mile. And then maybe the last quarter mile, maybe a little shorter, it is hand over hand climbing. It was not for beginners. It was not for the faint of heart. It was scary at times, but it was like a good amount of challenging. It was a good amount of scary where, you know, my adrenaline was definitely pumping, but I didn't feel like I was gonna die. And I was also hiking with people who had hiked the mountain before, so they kind of knew, you know, what routes were the best on the way up. That mountain was really challenging and very rewarding at the top. We did it, y'all. Let's go. The views were good at the top. It was more of like the experience and adventure that made me like this hike so much. This hike actually makes my top 10 favorite hikes of all time. Like it was that good because when you're hiking up to it, you're going like through the woods and it's really pretty. And then you'll get to Engineer Meadow. Oh my gosh, y'all, the flowers, the wildflowers in this part were crazy. They were in full bloom. It was so beautiful. And you just see Engineer Mountain really prominent there in the background. Wow, that's crazy. It was just breathtakingly beautiful. I was just in awe, just soaking it all in. And then, you know, you're climbing, and that climb is so difficult, but you're in such a beautiful place that, you know, I didn't really think about how hard it was. You got to the top, and it was just like such a rewarding way to the top. I really, really enjoyed that hike. I would definitely go do it again, even though it was a little scary. I'm gonna insert a picture of how hard the climb was, and I'm sorry, Mom, close your eyes, don't look at this picture because it looks a little sketchy, but I promise I was safe. I didn't feel very much in danger during this picture, but it looks gnarly, right? Like it was gnarly. Again, this mountain was just so difficult. Even though it wasn't running, this is still good training for me. It's still a good time on feet. It's still a good challenge. Although I've been a little injured this week, I was able to accomplish all that I wanted in the mountain so far. It hasn't held me back at all, which is all that I really wanted. I'm really excited about that, and I'm happy with how it went. My total running miles for the week was only 4.3 miles, but my total hiking miles for the week was 33 and a half, and it was 13 hours on feet for those hikes. I think that even though I couldn't run. And if you're going like through similar training where you're training for something really hard like this, if you do get injured, just do all that you can to make sure you're staying on your feet. You know, even if you're like working at your desk or something, try to like stand while you're working. Try to take like little walks and just try to maximize your time on feet, even if you can't, you know, do your runs that you've been planning to do. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to keep up with my training, make sure to subscribe. I'll definitely be posting a lot of Colorado content. I'm going to post a vlog of what it's like to crew someone, especially someone like Tara Dower for the Hard Rock 100. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.